All right, welcome to Fandom Thursdays. It's Thursday. We talk some of our favorite fandoms, and currently, right now, that includes Star Trek, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings. I got both Jacobs with me here today. I got Chris and Lindsay. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm glad that we could join you today. I haven't been able to make all of them, but here lately I've been making these, and I'm really enjoying them. So I mean, we watch the same shows just about. We watch these three shows anyway, so it's nice to be able to get to talk to you about them. And
to gush to somebody other than each other.
yeah,
Well, let's get started. But first, let's say Happy International or whatever Coffee Day.
is it? Wow, we didn't. I'm drinking water. I'm being good
I
this
was to say
morning.
we have egg on our face, just a little Monster Energy and some ice water.
Yeah.
Coffee does sound good. It's cold outside.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee during the summer, but as soon as that fall weather hits, I am coffee person again. So, and it's been a really nice chilly morning. So yeah, I did feel the urge for coffee this morning. So I'm gonna have to break it out.
Are you like, oh, it's too hot to drink coffee when it's in summertime?
Yeah, I
Drink
just
coffee, take a hot shower, all those good, wonderful things you should do often.
yeah
Not in Texas.
I am straight up sweet tea and water with an occasional soda during the summertime, but and I'm having, of course, plenty of beer and other oat sodas and alcoholic beverages. But I just cannot do coffee when it's really hot outside. Just not my cup of tea.
I can do it in the morning as long as I stay inside. It's just I can't. I'm not one of those people, and you know it. You're related to them. You know them. They drink like pots and pots of coffee all day long.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just I never could do that. Even as pouring sweat, just sitting there drinking coffee, and I'm like, nope, sorry. My insides have to have cool liquids. If I don't, now I will combust. I will spontaneously combust.
But enough about coffee and
Yep.
weather because it's actually probably gonna be chilly tomorrow morning.
It's
Like
chilly as
actually
well.
chilly.
Right.
It's supposed to drop in the 40s, I think, tonight.
Oh, nice. Yep.
But
Yep. It's about fun.
which which one of these shows we want to talk first?
I'm good with either. Let's do Rings of Power.
Let's
Let's
do
get Rings.
Rings of Power. So this latest episode seems to be some issues. Not everybody's on board Gladriel's quest, and even
Yeah,
there's an attempt at sabotage. Not
it's it's
directly, but
it's
well, no, it
interesting
is
how they're setting
directly.
this up. Yeah, uh, it it's cu- it's interesting how they're setting this up because it seems to me they have to get a certain group of people off the island and away from Numenor. Okay, because we got a foreshadowing of in the last episode. The island's gonna sink, people. I'm sorry, spoiler. It happens in the lore, which that's one of the main pieces that they're keeping. So the island's gonna sink. You have to get Isildur and um, his father.
If
Man,
you're looking at me to remember that name or how to pronounce it, I am
yeah.
so sorry.
Well, they have to get both of them off the island, and
Which by the end of the episode, they're on the ship leaving.
they're on the ship. Now, originally, they left the island. Now, it says they fled the island. Now, they're tweaking it a little bit. This is how they're getting them off the island to go fight to go and we're seeing the beginnings of the first alliance of men and elves and so on. And this is what you see in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring. This is where this leads up to Sauron getting the ring cut off his finger and so on. But see,
I
he
don't
hasn't
think
even...
we're gonna get there in this first season, though.
No. We're not. Now, I guess they're setting it up to where they forged the rings in Middle Earth, and they get distributed from there.
I guess so, because we also have, the dwarves have discovered Mithril, but they call it something else. And now the elves had revealed to Elrond that was the whole reason they wanted him to go and form an alliance with the dwarves, is because they need the Mithril, because I guess the evil of Middle Earth is corrupting this tree, which gives them their source of life, and if it continues to be corrupted, they will die.
Right. So they're laying it out, and like I'm still really enjoying it. I'm still trying to figure out how they're spinning it, because I recognize a lot of the major plots of lore and stuff, and what they're maybe certain directions that they're taking characters, but the overall story, like we know what's going to happen. We know what it's leading up to. I'm just trying to figure out how they're spinning it and how they're going to lay it out, because there's not a lot to go from. We get plot points, but there's not a lot of in between, and that's what we're getting is the filler. So it's interesting to see how they're doing this.
Yeah. I also love when is it Doran? Is that the dwarf's name?
Yeah, during
When he goes to have dinner with the elves, and he makes up this total BS story about their table, the like rock or marble from the table is used for like burials and sacred things for the dwarves, and then Elrond's like, "You just made all that up, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I need a new table."
Yeah, he's like, Deez has been wanting a new table for ages, and I was like, that's pretty good.
It's a power move.
Yeah, it's a pretty ballsy move. That was great.
I also appreciate that Elrond was up front with him, even though like the dwarves are like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to betray your friend because we need this for survival." And Elrond's like, "Oh, let me just tell you, like, why we need this Mithril."
Right.
He's a very honest person, an earnest person.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm wondering when they're gonna wake up the Balrog though.
Yep, it's happening.
Like it's gonna happen. They're gonna dig too deep, because again they mention it. That's another throwback. They dug too deep and they woke up the Balrog, and they couldn't fight it. So their little kingdom got wiped out. So that's going to be interesting.
All right, I got a question for you, and you probably either don't know or you do know, and I'm completely wrong. Is the stranger who's with the Harfoots, is that Gandalf?
Well, here's the deal. Gandalf doesn't show up until the Second Age, and he shows up along with two others. And I'm a little skewed on who they are.
Is it the two blue wizards?
No, I want to. Who is it that he shows up with? There's two prominent figures that he shows up with, and I just cannot off the top of my head.
While you're thinking about that, speaking of the two blue wizards, do you remember when the trailers were coming out, the little breadcrumb trailers, and like a bunch of Lord of the Rings YouTubers were like, "Look at these two figures. Are they the blue wizards?" And they just turned out to be like some dudes.
Yeah, travelers.
The ultimate bait and switch. They were just like, "Yeah, they're hunters. They come through here all the time. They're not special."
Yeah, they were talking about the Harfoots.
Pull the rug out from underneath you.
I mean, I would like to know more about these blue wizards since they mentioned them. I'm like, who are these guys?
We could possibly be Sauron coming back. and got, because he came back in a guise and was able to kind of worm tongue his way into a prominent place, and that's where he forged the rings. He had the rings forged and distributed. So
Okay, that's a theory. Could it also be Saruman?
I don't.
Because he's older than Gandalf, right?
He is in appearance. It could possibly
I feel
be.
like
That's
they're-
really skewing.
Do you think they're doing another bait and switch? Because this character is like, communing with bugs specifically,
And birds.
they dressed him very, very grungy, Gandalf-y. And if it is Sauron in a guise, holy moly.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because he's supposed to be. Sauron is basically. He's kind of like Lucifer in a way. He's,
Fallen angel.
he was very deceiving. And if you're going to deceive anyone, and
It's easier to trick the people who are kind-hearted by nature.
before you pull the old bait
Uh-huh.
and switch, why wouldn't you do it to the Harfoots? Because they're the most innocent creatures in this story so far. So he could come in and be kind of kind and everything, and then as he's learning his power, just be like, "Oh yeah, now I remember what I'm
He
supposed
stumbles
to do."
in as like a little injured baby man fallen, and they take
It's
care
like
of
that whole Doctor Who arc where Derek Jacobi didn't know who he was, and then he remembered he was the master.
Right.
Like by the end of that episode, I forget whatever they had to do to help, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm an evil Time Lord."
I just remembered. Sorry to tell you.
I guess the other B plot is those are C plot. However many, there's a lot of plots going on. The inhabitants of that one town with the elf, they've like formed factions, and half of them left to not good reprise to end up with the orcs. But yeah, I think they are doing like a Helm's Deep type of situation with those characters.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was immediately recognizable when they were like, "Hurry, get everyone to the Elven stronghold." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, yeah, it's gonna be another Helm's Deep." But hey, it's cool. We're getting a lot of extra stuff.
But yeah, I didn't even think of it being Sauron. You're probably right, Chris. That's probably what they're doing. It's probably going to be a whole twist at the end of the season or something.
Well, I was thinking at first maybe the guy that showed up that knew how to forge things. Remember, she found him. She found Galadriel at sea, and they were just floating.
Oh, you're talking about the guy who's supposedly the Lord of the Southlands or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be him too. Yeah.
Either he's going to be. They could be setting him up to be the king that refused to come to. Was it to help aid during the Great Alliance, or to help Gondor at some point? It was they were supposed to help someone, and they end up becoming the ghosts. The trapped spirits.
Oh yeah, those guys.
He keeps repeating, like, "Well, we're a race of traitors. Like, my people refuse to help," or like it was something to that effect. Like, he's mentioned it several times where.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe he's going to be set up as a king, and when the time comes, he's going to refuse to help whomever, and then he becomes cursed. Him and his army become cursed. Yeah. So that's another theory.
How come you didn't say any of this when we were watching it?
Because I have to have time to think about it.
Okay. You were digesting it.
I was digesting it. This is a lot to take
now I'm
in.
like, I can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah, this is a lot to take in and figure out what they're doing, who's who, how they're spinning it. Like, see, Isildur and his father came from a line of royalty. They came from a line of kings already before they even left Numenor. So them being set up as captain, sea captains or whatnot, is an odd choice. But I'm here for it. Like, I know they're gonna be set up as royalty, as king. He's gonna be made king in Middle Earth. They're gonna have to, in order for him to be able to eventually work up to him getting slain by Sauron, and then his son picking up the Narsil and cutting the ring off his finger. So we'll see. There's just a lot going on. It's a lot to unpack. Like, I know we know overall what's going to happen. It's just figuring out how they're doing it, how they're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how many more episodes we have this season, but I'm enjoying it. Okay, so about 4 or 5 more episodes.
Yeah, sadly.
I mean,
it's a big show. I get it.
Cost a lot of money. You see every penny up on that screen.
Oh, I know.
Amazon dollars.
And I remind people just about every other day that it's an adaptation, and just like Jackson's movies were. And sometimes they either get stumped and they're like, "Oh, you're right." Jackson's were adaptations because they left out. He literally he left things out. He added things. He reworked history and lore. Exactly what this show is doing, and people are still just like hating on it. I think it's more the fact that it's probably
people.
It's probably the fact that it's a Bezos and Amazon vehicle, and I get it. I don't like them as much as the next guy, but I mean, we're getting a pretty sweet show out of it, at least.
The people doing this show are, they're only associated by Amazon because Amazon picked up the series. So,
well, they're the money, and
yeah, they're the people who finance the show. The people making the show are not employee. They're not like Amazon stockholders,
right?
So they're not profiting off the misguided. Well, I guess they might be a little bit, but they're not in the same league as Bezos and his shareholders are, So we can watch and enjoy the show without talking about how horrible Amazon is.
Oh yeah.
But anything else before we move on to one of these other shows?
No, overall, I'm highly enjoying it. What a time to be alive if you are a nerd, because all in the same week I get to watch Lord of the Rings, Star Trek, and Star Wars in some shape or form, and it's awesome. So do yourself a favor, if you want to watch some really good fantasy, watch Rings of Power. Now, I have not picked up and started House of the Dragon. I will eventually get to it, but and I'm not knocking it in any way at all, and I can't because I haven't even watched it yet. But if you want some good fantasy, watch Rings of Power. It's good stuff.
I would say Rings of Power is the better show. It's also much more chill compared to Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones is very serious and dramatic and violent, and Lord of the Rings of Power is like, hey, how's it go? I mean, there's some drama and violence, but it's also like, hey, I brought some mushrooms. You want to share some mushrooms?
Yeah. Right.
Let's have some tea. Catch up.
Right.
So, which one you want to talk next?
I'm good. Out since I chose Rings of Power. Why don't you choose, Cody?
All right. Okay, let's do Lower Decks. It's the one freshest in my mind because I just watched it this morning. So yeah, this episode was definitely a little more fan servicey than others, but it was pretty funny. You know, they go to Deep Space Nine, and the commander's like, just circle around. Nope, keep circling. Making fun of the opening credits in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, that I laughed out loud with that. I was like, man, if they don't do the slow roll around around the station, and they did it, and it was amazing with the music, and I was like, please have Quark, and sure enough, they had Quark, which was amazing. Armin Shimmerman coming back to reprise his role, and Major Kira, that was great.
Yep, and then her and the chief security officer arguing over who owed who for saving each other's lives during different battles.
Yeah, that was just amazing all around. So how many little Easter eggs did you pick up since you've been watching DS9?
Well, definitely the whole, even though I haven't gotten there yet, but they mentioned, you know, the Dominion War and like Rutherford like wanting to have a heart to heart on the upper deck because you
Yeah,
know Jake and Nog hang out there all the time.
yeah.
Uh,
I was
just
my one of my favorite lines is at the beginning where the security chief was like, "Oh, Cardassian fascist eyesore." Everybody was like, "Oh wow, Deep Space Nine." He was like, fascist Cardassian eyesore," and I was like, "Ah, that's great."
yeah.
Cruise around and look like they're admiring the pylons. He's like, just keep cruising.
Yeah, just like you're in awe of the pylons.
You know, just the shadiness at Quarks, and even like mentioning that like the game's rigged, even though Boimler keeps winning.
Yeah, I thought that was great. He was like, "How about a gift card worth twice as much?" He goes, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. We don't even use money in the Federation anyway."
And then we find out Tindy meets a fellow person of her race who is definitely more boisterous of what he does than meets the eye when they actually come into actual danger.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I liked. I missed the name of his ship. It was the captain that they talked to at the beginning. That's like, you're going to go
the
take care of this.
Vancouver, so I guess they have Canadian class starships too, besides California class.
Well, it was the Vancouver, but it was a Hispanic captain, and you see the Alamo in the background. I thought that was funny. Like, just two totally opposite cultures, Canada and Mexico, like mashing. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, we'll just mesh those other countries in North America together, even though they're completely two different cultures. It's just...
Yeah.
And then a mariner's stuck on the ship with her girlfriend, and looks like they're in some kind of weird, like, yoga, candle lighting, wannabe witch circle thing going on. New age stuff.
The like spoken poetry and the snapping instead of clapping.
Yeah.
Oh, there. I love that her girlfriend brought her there to like terrorize her friends. She's like, I was looking forward to it. And she gets to stow them all.
mean, that was pretty funny, though. She's like, you could preserve more oxygen when you're unconscious.
Yeah, that was good.
But yeah, it's a fun show. It's a fun episode. I think for Star Trek fans, they'll definitely really enjoy this one since it's got a little more Easter eggs than a typical episode.
Oh yeah, I'm glad we got to go back, or we got to see DS9 in this. Like we've got to see so much. So it was cool getting to see DS9 in animated form, getting to go back, especially after after the series ends. You don't see a whole lot. I mean, you get to pick it up in novels and stuff like that, but in comic book form. But getting to see it is pretty cool, even though it was animated.
Yeah, did they not show up in any of those characters show up on Voyager after Deep Space Nine ended? Because I guess Voyager's its own little story.
Yeah, the only one who showed up that was connected to another show was Barclay. Because Barclay, by the time we get to Voyager, Barclay is working. He's transferred to Starfleet and working in communications, and he's the one that actually makes contact with Voyager because they get close enough to where they can make long distance contact with Starfleet and let them know that they're still alive and everything. And Barclay is the one who helps make that happen, which is cool. I thought it was a cool little tie-in to Next Gen and an update on his character.
Well, speaking of Next Gen, you posted yesterday that 35 years ago yesterday, it debuted on television, which I guess started this whole. I mean, I guess the movies started at first, but really with them doing a new television series kind of started the whole, basically Star Trek living on outside of the original series.
Right. Well, like I said, it would start. There would be some form of Star Trek on TV for the next 20 years, which is incredible.
87 to what? 05 is when Enterprise was canceled.
2012.
Yeah, so that's almost 20 years of some iteration and basically makes it a franchise because there are other things besides the main series and those characters living on in the universe.
Right.
And apparently Enterprise debuted 21 years ago yesterday.
The day before that was I remember what I was doing. I was working at Berkshire Brothers in Rusk at the time. It came out on a Wednesday. I remember going by the dollar store on the way home and picking up some blank VHS tapes so I could record. I did. I seriously, I recorded the entire first 2 seasons before I started working at the movie theater part time, and I started working on Wednesdays. But yeah, every Wednesday, I remember coming home and telling my mom, I was like, "Mom, I'm not going to Wednesday night church anymore." And she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because Star Trek Enterprise is coming on," and she just gave me this look, like, "Well, I mean, I guess you're old enough now. I'm not going to argue with you." And I was like, "I'm recording Star Trek, damn it."
She was probably thinking, "I hope new Star Trek is worth your lost
soul,
Christopher Bryant."
But
I don't want to get on an anti-organized religion rant, but I would argue you probably learned more valuable lessons on a Star Trek episode than you would at your local church.
Yes, you know what? Lots of positive messages.
I can tell you that I pretty much have. my parents on Star Trek, I'm telling you, if it wasn't for them, I'd be a shit human being. No, I'm just playing. But
Well, of the Deep Space Nine I got into this week, I watched 2 episodes. It's one
okay.
where Cisco, Kira, and Bashir are trapped on a planet where 2 races are forever stuck battling each other until they can learn to, I guess, settle their differences.
Yeah. I remember vaguely remember that one.
Story.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of similar to what is going on in the world, and I wonder if that was the purpose of the episode and, still going on
Right.
in our society. A notable guest star, I think his name is Jonathan Banks. I could have the actor's name wrong. He's most famous now for being in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul as Mike Ehrmantraut.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he shows up as the leader of one of the factions. And yeah, one of those actors who I guess had to age into his face because he didn't look like, I think he's more recognizable now as an older man than he was when he was like middle-aged or young. But anyways, and then I watched one where O'Brien and Bashir go down to a planet and they name O'Brien like the next shaman of their planet, even though it was a whole ruse.
Yeah.
To fight a cloud or something.
Oh yeah.
Star Trek,
Man.
plots.
Yeah, that was a filler of the week.
Cisco's dealing with negotiations between these 2 races that share land on a planet, and one of the leaders is a teenage girl, and she's having to deal with being a leader even though she's a child, and she hangs out with Nog and Jake and they try to steal Odo's bucket.
Okay, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, those sound like episode of the week fillers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I don't know, maybe there's some overalling arc in season 1, but it's been a lot of filler episodes for the most part.
Yeah, you're still getting to know everybody and all that jazz. So okay, well, cool. I'm glad you're watching through these. I was going to mention that we really needed to. I don't want to overload your watch list, but when you're ready, I would like to talk Battlestar Galactica reboot.
No, okay.
Start with the miniseries. There's 4 seasons, but there are a couple of made-for-TV movies in between, and I've got all of it that you can borrow. But when you're ready, and you're ready to dive into that world, you let me know, because
maybe he should watch the Portlandia sketch first, so he knows what he's getting into when he starts Battlestar.
Yeah, I'm gonna post that. I want to post it in the group when we're done, and you'll understand what you need to.
How you need to prepare yourself.
Yeah. Portlandia did a pretty great, spot on sketch about Battlestar Galactica.
Well, Mark Bernardin, writer for a lot of TV shows and stuff, co-hosts a podcast with Kevin Smith. He did a podcast where they rewatched the whole series with one of the cast members.
I saw that, and I wanted to listen to that, but just never got around to it. Wasn't it Katie Sackhoff, or was it?
I don't think it was Katie Sackhoff.
I think it was Trisha Heffler.
That's who it was.
Yeah. 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. Yeah. We went through it early 2020, but Lindsay's been like, you know what? I could probably watch that again. I'm like,
it's a January show when it's actually too cold in Texas to really go anywhere.
Yeah. But I'm ready to get into that. Like I'm ready to dive back into that, because that was some damn good TV. at the beginning of the aughts, the 2000s, and it was in there with like The Sopranos and Lost and Heroes and Doctor Who, Tennant, when he was, making a big. Doctor Who was kind of coming back in, and it was right in that time period where, I don't know, that TV was really good to me. Like, I followed a lot of those shows, but I'm down to talk it. I think you should watch it.
Well, maybe when
Sorry.
there's a lull in some of this stuff where we don't have something new to talk about, we can do that. All right. Well, are you guys ready to move on to Star Wars then?
Yeah.
What do you think of Andor so far?
I'm loving Andor, and like I told you earlier, off air, I think it's an adult Star Wars. It's a Star Wars without the fart jokes, and I say that lovingly because I know Star Wars is a kids platform, mainly, or young adult, younger generation platform. But it is nice to see an adult-driven Star Wars show that's serious. And this is the way I was thinking about it last night. It was kind of like watching the first Captain America movie and being like, wow, this is really great. It's fun. It's epic hero. And then we get Winter Soldier. And it's like, wow, it grew up. And this is what this feels like. This is what Andor feels like. It feels like Star Wars.
Because instead of the story focusing on someone who has like a lofty, heavy fate thrust upon them, this is everybody else in the galaxy who's just trying to like survive.
Yeah, exactly.
All the grown-ups trying to figure out where the food and the medicine is going to come from and how they're going to get there,
and I'm really loving the fact that we see corporate military, like corporate army, and that the Empire was using them as well. Like, and because if you look at their uniforms that they had, they resemble Cloud City uniforms. And when you think about it, Cloud City was a corporation, and it also had its own army or military in some way or form or fashion. And I think that's really cool. And it shows how, the Palpatine's army was only so big, but he could bring in these corporations and use their might and strength as well. And I think that's really cool.
And their motivational greed.
Yeah, motivational greed. And then you're seeing the underworkings of the rebellion and what the population's going through, and I think it's really well done.
Yeah, and I was just noticing watching this week's episode is like, dang. And noticing between this and Obi-Wan, like how patriarchal the Empire is, because in both shows you have a female officer. Different, and we don't know, maybe similar, but like right now, different plots, but you have a female officer trying to rise above the ranks, and like the male cohorts are like, don't be trying to tell me what to do. Stay in your lane.
Right.
Which is really interesting that they're bringing that. I know some people, and we know what their problem is, with all these fandoms, don't like these inclusion, but it's in a galaxy far, far away. These are made up characters. If you can accept different species of alien, then you can expect different races and gender of people in these stories too, not just aliens and white dudes.
Right. And that goes the same with Star Trek and Rings of Power, especially Rings of Power, and some of the main criticism I've seen with that. And I'm not trying to circle around and get back on my pedestal with that, but it just goes for all platforms. If you can accept certain things in certain shows but can't in others, I mean, the problem's you. The problem's you, buddy.
I did enjoy that we got Mon Mothma to show up in this episode, and I'm kind of digging that Stellan Skarsgård's front is that he's an antiques dealer.
Yes, I like that. I thought that was great that he was kind of changing back into his persona, and we get to see that. But it goes to show that, like, in depth, how the network, the spy network, was set up, and the resistance, and coming because they're on Coruscant. They're right in Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And getting information. And if you look at earlier stories, or if you're familiar with the comics or the books, then you know that the Empire is definitely modeled after the Nazis, or even the Kremlin. And when it comes to the information and smuggling things out, I mean, they were definitely knocking on people's doors in the middle of the night that a neighbor gave up and being drug away for questioning and possible execution. That's what they were living in, even on Coruscant. That was the height of Palpatine's rule, and he was like, Palpatine was basically a Mussolini and a Hitler rolled into one.
Yep.
So I don't know. They're showing a really good job. They're doing a really good job of showing that, like showing the how everything is networked, and the inner workings of the rebellion, and who's the different senators. They're, how they were. His front is an antique shop, but she went in to shop or get a present for her husband. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and then they go into the back and have their little conversation, and then come out and acting like nothing's happened, because you don't know who's listening. You don't know the valet can turn
They
around.
mentioned she's got a new chauffeur, and so she doesn't know, like, since it's not one of her regular staff, she doesn't know if that guy can be trusted,
Right.
like he's going to report what he sees. Though I do love his little line when his assistant's trying to keep him occupied, and he's like, I can't afford anything in here. That's how I feel like almost anytime I go to a fancy store. I'm like, why are we even in here? I can't even buy anything in here.
Yeah.
Well, I say fancy store. I mean, that's also spirit of Halloween, right? I'm in there looking. I'm like, I can't buy anything in here.
Yeah. That's how we promised to take the kids, and that's how I'm going to be in there. I know I don't want, man, I can't buy shit.
I can't buy anything except exactly 3 costumes.
Yeah. Man.
And then we get to figure out what Andor's going to be doing. He's going to be helping them break into some facility.
Yeah, I guess we're going to see his chops, like what's going to lead him into the rebellion. Or I guess he's already kind of in it.
He's sort of in it, but not completely, because I guess because in the earlier episodes we find out that Aunt Petunia, I don't know what her name is in this, but Aunt Petunia from Harry Potter finds him as a child, and I guess takes him in,
Right.
kind of raises him, which I think she's part of the rebellion.
Yeah.
Or she's at least a thief. because I guess that's what he's mostly is right now.
Right.
But yeah, this is, I guess, how we get him embedded to be like a one of the big spies in the rebellion. But we also know he can take care of himself because he murdered those two, like, security officers or whatever they were.
Right. Yeah, that was that was my first indication, like, wow, this is going to be totally different, where he just shoots that guy in the face.
Yeah, well, we already knew he's capable because in Rogue One he kills that informant when he has to.
Right. I
And
guess
he
that
was
was
willing, and he was willing to kill Jane Erso's dad too.
yeah, yeah. That was just Disney, like, it's okay, guys. Look, this is for you. Pew, right in the face.
But I'm glad that we're getting something that's at least a different flavor than what most people want in Star Wars, because it's a huge universe and we should be able to explore stories that don't feature a Skywalker.
Exactly. Yeah. Or Kenobi, or a familiar character.
Yeah, which is what Mandalorian what started out as, but now, it's kind of like the mascot for the franchise now.
Yeah. I think
Which
that
is
was just
fine.
like,
I enjoy Mandalorian, but
well, I mean, I'm
I'm
enjoying them all. It's
I'm
just, it's
perfectly fine if the season 3 of Mandalorian's just, Mando and Grogu going on adventures helping people.
right. Andor feels like my Strange New Worlds to the franchise. Does that make sense?
Does it? Because does it get back to, like, I guess that aspect of the grime and
If
dirtiness of the original trilogy?
yeah, it feels more like a Star Wars to me. Like the other ones do. They all have a familiarity, but this one, um, I don't know, man. I'm really digging this one. This one's probably my favorite out of the current new Star Wars, and we're only what 4 episodes in,
Yeah.
and it's
Okay.
because it's different. You know, it's because it's kind of like Rogue One being in my top favorite out of the current Star Wars that we've gotten, because it was different. We know what's going to happen. We're familiar with the story somewhat, but it was totally, other than Vader and like a few others, we got new characters, and it was just different. It was like it was another story that wasn't about Han Solo or Kenobi or Rey Skywalker or whatever, that didn't deal with Jedi and all that jazz. So I don't know.
That
It's
being
different.
said, I am excited for Tales of the Old Jedi.
Oh, same. I mean, it's Star Wars. I'm going to eat it up. I mean,
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of Andor, and I'm glad that they're exploring all avenues of the franchise and different things for different fans.
right.
And this is definitely the adult series, even though I think younger people could watch it. I think this is definitely skews more to an older audience, especially people who like spy thrillers or like a TV show like The Wire. This is kind of like that version in Star Wars.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think that's all I got for this week on these three shows. You guys got anything else you want to mention or talk about?
No. I mean, I'm good. So I think we covered it. We got to talk about 3 awesome shows, and I mean, I honestly don't really have anything negative to say about them. They've all been really good so far, and I'm really enjoying them. And like I said at the beginning of the show, what a time to be alive if you're a nerd. So yeah.
No, I have nothing negative to say about any of these shows. They give me different enjoyment levels for different purposes. I think the one right now that I most look forward to watching every week is Lower Decks because it's kind of lighthearted and funny, and it doesn't take that long to watch, so it's a pretty digestible amount of time, and it's fun.
Right.
Rings
I
of
like
Power.
that. You can see that.
Rings of Power is the longest, and that one I have to watch with Jessica because she likes Lord of the Rings. So we always end up watching that one usually on Saturday or Sunday morning. And then Andor is pretty solid, but I appreciate Andor for what it's doing. It may not be my favorite of the Star Wars shows, but I appreciate what it's doing, and it's doing something different, and I like that.
Right. I can see
But
that.
all right, I guess that's going to cover us for this week. We'll try and be back next week to talk about the next week's episodes. Of course, Rings of Power comes out tomorrow, Andor on Wednesdays, and of course, Lower Decks on Thursdays.
All right. And tomorrow, The Witch and Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. That's right. We're going to talk witches this weekend for spooky season, and since Hocus Pocus 2 is dropping on Disney Plus tomorrow, I thought, why not talk the original, which has become a cult classic? And Chris was like, well, I want to watch something scary. So I was like, well, let's watch The Witch.
That's a good combo. They both got witches. One's lighthearted and one's actually disturbing. So,
and they're kind of set in the same time period. Well, I mean, Hocus Pocus goes to modern day, but it starts in that time period.
watch that Adventist Sanderson sister who ate that baby in The Witch. That's.
Oh, you're trying to connect the stories.
And then she eats that baby and gets younger, and that's where we lead into. I don't know. I'm going too far.
You're going too far, and yeah. Did Sarah Jessica Parker lure that poor young boy into her den? All right. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow evening then.
All right. Yeah, we'll be ready.
And you enjoy the rest of your day that you have off.
Yes. Doing some deep cleaning, getting ready for the holidays.
Yeah, I think that's going to be part of our Saturday too, is some cleaning and decorating for Halloween.
Yeah, I'm getting.
Olaf will not be excited.
We kind of shut our nerd cave down during the summer because it's just too hot. It's a bigger room and it's too much to keep cool. So I just shut it down during the summer and keep the curtain closed. So it's time to go in and dust and clean and get everything kind of set up and ready to start watching movies out there again. So migrate into another room of the house because it's cooler.
Cool. Sounds exciting.
But, all right. Well.
All right. I will see you guys later. Anyone who is watching or watches later, if you like this, subscribe, comment, but be kind to what you say and to anyone else who comments. And have a great day. And if you're somewhere where it's fall weather, enjoy. If you're in Florida, please stay safe.
Yes. 80 degrees here. I'm excited about 80 degrees.
80
so
degrees is autumn.
Yeah, that's autumn.
Yeah. It just shows you how hot it is that we're excited that 80 degrees. We're like, oh, it's 80 degrees. I can wear jeans.
Yeah.
and socks. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.